Welcome to the Reddit Family Tallis YouTube channel, a place where genuine and inspiring family stories are shared. Here, you'll enjoy unique videos about family life, humorous moments, and meaningful lessons. Let's explore together the stories where love and connection shine through. Join us in creating beautiful memories. Please comment and let us know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe now so you won't miss the special video launching tomorrow. She destroyed my life. Now she's asking me to save hers. Rachel always knew she wasn't the favorite in her family. Growing up in a suburban town outside of Dallas, Texas, she spent her entire childhood watching her parents shower her older sister, Emily, with praise, attention, and financial support. It was as if Emily could do no wrong. She was beautiful, charismatic, and naturally talented at everything she tried. If Emily got an A in school, their parents would throw a celebration. If Rachel got an A, they barely noticed. From the start, Emily was given every opportunity to succeed. Their parents paid for her tuition at an elite Ivy League business school, covered her rent in a luxury apartment, and even funded extravagant spring break vacations. They loved to brag about their golden child, how she was destined for greatness, how she was going to take over the family restaurant business and turn it into an empire. Meanwhile, Rachel was left to figure things out on her own. Unlike her sister, Rachel wasn't the outgoing, charismatic type. She was more reserved, more analytical. Instead of parties and school plays, she spent her time buried in books or coding in her room. She worked hard, earning a degree in computer science with top honors, all while juggling part-time jobs to stay afloat. But no matter what she achieved, it never seemed to be enough. When she graduated, there was no celebration, no words of pride from her parents. Instead, her mother simply said, "That's nice, honey. Have you seen the pictures from Emily's graduation? Wasn't she stunning?" That was the moment Rachel truly understood her place in the family. She wasn't the one they pinned their hopes on, she was the afterthought. For years, Rachel buried the resentment. She convinced herself that if she worked hard enough, if she proved her worth, her parents would finally see her as more than just Emily's little sister. She built a stable career managing projects for a digital company, but she knew she wanted more. She wanted to climb the corporate ladder, maybe even start her own business someday. An MBA was the next logical step. What Rachel didn't realize was that chasing her own dreams would be the thing that finally shattered her already fragile relationship with her family. Because when she asked for the same support Emily had received, the response would change everything. Rachel had always known she was treated differently, but she never imagined just how deep the favoritism ran, until the night she asked her parents for help. She had spent weeks preparing for the conversation, running through every possible way to present her case. Her MBA wasn't just about education, it was an investment in her future. She wanted to advance in her career, maybe even start her own business one day. If they had funded Emily's entire education, surely they would help her, too, right? After dinner one evening, she sat her parents down, her heart pounding. She carefully laid out her plan, explaining how an MBA would open doors for her, how she had already been accepted into a top program, and how just a little financial help, maybe co-signing a loan, could make all the difference. But as soon as the words left her mouth, She saw it. The shift. Her father sighed, rubbing his temples. Her mother barely looked up from her phone. And just like that, the conversation wasn't about Rachel at all. Instead, they started talking about Emily. "Did you hear about the big expansion Emily's planning for the restaurant?" her mother gushed. "She's really taking things to the next level. We're so proud of her." Rachel sat there, stunned. Had they even heard what she said? Finally, when she pushed for an answer, her father leaned forward, his voice firm. "Rachel, we can't afford to pay for your MBA. We already invested in Emily's education. Now, we have to focus on the restaurant's future." Rachel's stomach dropped. Invested. As if Emily's education had been a business decision, not parental support. "I'm not asking you to pay for everything," she said carefully. "Just co-sign a loan. That wouldn't cost you a dime unless I defaulted, which I won't." Her mother shook her head, dismissing her. "Honey, Emily's degree helped the family business. An MBA? That's just for you." That was it. That was how they saw her, an outsider. Not part of the family's future. For years, Rachel had swallowed the favoritism, convincing herself it wasn't personal. But now, it was clear. She would never be as important to them as Emily. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, anger and betrayal twisted in her chest. If her own parents wouldn't believe in her, she'd find someone who would. Rachel refused to let her parents' rejection define her future. If they weren't willing to support her, she'd find another way. There was only one person she could think of, her Aunt Lisa. Unlike her parents, Aunt Lisa had built her own success from the ground up. As a respected neurosurgeon, she had never relied on the family's restaurant business, and she had always treated Rachel with kindness. But asking for help wasn't easy. Rachel hesitated, feeling like she was betraying her family. Still, she had no other option. One evening, she called Aunt Lisa and explained everything, her MBA plans, her parents' refusal, and how all she needed was a little financial backing to get started. Aunt Lisa didn't even hesitate. "Rachel, why didn't you come to me sooner? Of course, I'll help. I've always believed in you." Rachel felt a mix of relief and guilt. She made Aunt Lisa promise to keep it quiet, knowing how her parents, especially her father, felt about accepting help from his sister. There had always been an unspoken rivalry between them, and Rachel could already hear his voice in her head. "We don't need charity from Lisa." For a while, everything seemed fine. Rachel focused on her MBA preparation, feeling hopeful for the first time in years. But then, everything came crashing down. Somehow, Emily found out. Maybe she had snooped through Rachel's emails, maybe she overheard a phone call. Rachel never figured it out. But once Emily knew, she did what she always did. She twisted the story to make herself the victim. One evening, Rachel came home from work expecting a quiet night. Instead, she walked into a trap. The house was eerily silent, the air thick with tension. As she stepped into the living room, her heart dropped. All of her belongings, her clothes, her books, even her bedding, had been packed into boxes. Her parents sat on the couch, their expressions unreadable. And standing off to the side, with a smug look of satisfaction, was Emily. Her father threw a stack of printed emails at her. "Explain this." Rachel's hands trembled as she picked them up. The emails looked familiar, except something was wrong. Emily had doctored them. She had manipulated messages between Rachel and Aunt Lisa to make it seem like Rachel had betrayed the family, leaking private business information in exchange for tuition money. Rachel's voice cracked. "This isn't real. These emails are fake. I would never." But it didn't matter. Her parents had already made up their minds. "We trusted you," her father said coldly. "And you stabbed us in the back." Rachel turned to her mother, desperate for support. But her mother just shook her head, tears in her eyes. And Emily? She just stood there, watching, knowing she had won. "You need to leave," her father said. "We won't have a traitor in this house." Rachel felt the world spinning around her. After everything, after years of working hard, of staying out of trouble, of doing everything right, this was how it ended. She tried one last time. "Mom, please. You know me. You really believe I would do something like this?" Her mother looked away. That was it. With nothing but a few boxes and the clothes on her back, Rachel walked out the door, out of her home, out of her family's life. As she packed her car, she saw the neighbors watching from their windows, whispering about the drama unfolding in front of them. Rachel didn't cry. Not yet. But the moment she got in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, the weight of the betrayal crashed down on her. With shaking fingers, she called the only person she had left. Aunt Lisa picked up immediately. "Rachel? What's wrong?" Rachel let out a sob. "They kicked me out." Without hesitation, Aunt Lisa responded. "Come to me. You'll always have a place here." And just like that, Rachel had lost everything, but also, maybe, she had finally gained the freedom to start over. Rachel had spent years trying to prove her worth to a family that never saw her as enough. But now, standing in Aunt Lisa's guest room with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart, she realized something. She didn't need their approval anymore. The first few weeks were hard. The betrayal stung in ways she hadn't expected. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the smug look on Emily's face, the disappointment in her father's eyes, the way her mother wouldn't even look at her. It haunted her. But Rachel wasn't about to let them define her future. She threw herself into her MBA. She stayed late at the library, networked with professors, and poured every ounce of pain into her studies. If her family thought she was nothing, she would prove them wrong, not for them, but for herself. And she did. 2 years later, Rachel walked across the stage, accepting her MBA with top honors. She had done it, without a single cent from her parents. And for the first time in her life, people recognized her not as Emily's sister but as a force of her own. With her degree in hand, She landed a job at one of the most prestigious consulting firms in Los Angeles. The paycheck was more than she had ever dreamed of. She moved into a modern apartment downtown, decorated it exactly how she wanted. No reminders of her past, just a fresh start. Meanwhile, her family's restaurant business was falling apart. Rachel hadn't spoken to them in 3 years, but through mutual acquaintances, she started hearing whispers. The grand expansion her parents had invested everything in? A complete disaster. They had taken on massive loans, overestimated their market, and now, they were drowning in debt. Then, one evening, as Rachel was unwinding after work, there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, she barely recognized the woman standing in front of her. Emily. Gone were the designer clothes, the polished appearance. She looked tired, drained, dark circles under her eyes, her once pristine blonde hair tied up in a messy bun. She shifted awkwardly. "Hey, Rachel. Can we talk?" Rachel's stomach tightened. For 3 years, Emily had been nothing but a ghost. No calls. No apologies. No attempt to reach out. And now, here she was. Rachel didn't move. Didn't invite her in. "What do you want?" she asked coldly. Emily swallowed hard. "I need your help." Rachel folded her arms. "Help? You mean like the help I asked for? The help you made sure I never got?" Emily flinched but didn't back down. She let out a shaky breath. "The restaurant is failing. Dad's talking about filing for bankruptcy. Mom is a wreck. And I don't know what to do. You're doing amazing in your career. You have your MBA. Maybe you could help us figure a way out of this." Rachel almost laughed. The golden child was now at her door, begging for help. The irony was almost too much to handle. Rachel stared at her sister, feeling something unexpected, a twisted sense of satisfaction. This was karma, wasn't it? But mixed in with the satisfaction was something else. Not quite pity, but something close. "Why are you really here, Emily?" Rachel asked, her voice steady. Emily's lip trembled. For the first time ever, she looked vulnerable. "Because you're the only one who can save us." Rachel felt her chest tighten. 3 years ago, her family had thrown her away without a second thought. Now, they were crawling back, desperate. And for the first time in her life, Rachel was the one with the power. Rachel stood in the doorway, staring at Emily, the sister who had orchestrated her downfall, the golden child who had always been untouchable. And now? Now she was standing there, begging for help. A part of Rachel wanted to slam the door in her face. Wanted to tell her, "You made your bed, now lie in it." But another part of her, one she wasn't proud of, felt something else. Not quite pity, but something close. "You really expect me to fix this?" Rachel asked, arms crossed. Emily let out a breath. "I don't know what else to do. You're the only one who has the knowledge, the connections. If anyone can save the restaurant, it's you. Rachel studied her sister. Emily looked small, defeated. This was a woman who had spent her whole life believing she was above consequences. And now she was drowning in them. And what about Mom and Dad? Rachel pressed. Do they even know you're here? Emily hesitated, and that pause told Rachel everything. They don't, do they? Rachel said with a smirk. Emily sighed. They don't think you'd help. But I do. Rachel's stomach twisted. They still don't think I'd help. Of course they didn't. Because to them, she was still the disappointment, the outsider, the one they had thrown away without hesitation. And now, when they needed her most, they still couldn't bring themselves to admit it. Rachel took a slow breath, weighing her options. She could help. She had the skills, the knowledge. A part of her even wanted to walk into that restaurant, fix their mess, and make them see, really see, how badly they had misjudged her. But then what? Would they suddenly love her? Would they suddenly apologize, admit they had been wrong? No. They wouldn't. Even if she saved them, she would always be second best. Rachel straightened, her decision crystal clear. No. Emily blinked. What? You heard me, Rachel said firmly. I'm not going to be your backup plan. I spent my whole life waiting for our parents to see my worth, and they never did. And I finally stopped caring. I built something for myself. And I'm not throwing that away just because you finally know what it feels like to lose. Emily's face crumbled. Rachel, please. I don't owe you anything, Rachel cut in. She reached for the door, ready to shut this chapter of her life for good. Emily's eyes filled with desperation. What about family? Doesn't that mean anything to you? Rachel's fingers tightened on the door handle. Family, she repeated, letting the words sit in the air. Then she shook her head. My family is Aunt Lisa. My family is the people who stood by me when you threw me away. And I'm done setting myself on fire just to keep you warm. With that, Rachel closed the door. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one left standing in the cold. This time, she was the one who walked away. What would you do? If you were in Rachel's shoes, would you have helped your family or walked away like she did? Do you think they truly deserved a second chance, or was this just another manipulation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been in a similar situation where you had to choose between family and self-respect? Let's talk about it.